Good morning. You listen to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Bruce Zwicker, an industry consultant and another person that's passionate about this flooring industry. Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kemp.
It's the first day of the third month in the first quarter here in 2024. It might be good just to catch up and throw some ideas around about where we're seeing the flooring industry right now. I guess we should start with show traffic, which from our perspective was kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, you had surfaces. They're saying their registration numbers were up some. Talking to people on the floor, there were some that thought it was flat to last year and some that thought it was up just a little bit. But the regional shows, like the Atlanta show and the Dallas show, they were not very strong at all. They were a little bit of a disappointment. When you look at these shows, the buying groups have their own shows, which takes the place of a lot of these successful retailers needing to go to an independent show, and the attendance there, has been flat to slightly down with the buying groups. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you actually nailed it and covered the waterfront on that topic. I think the floor space was bigger. There were more exhibitors. We had some first-time exhibitors. I think in general the traffic was probably flat, little up, little down, someplace in there. And you mentioned the regional shows are down. If you look at the business conditions, it'd be this bad. So, attendance in any environment like that is going to be down. I think we'll see a resurgence when things gets better.
It's easy to understand, as you mentioned, that retailers, when you look at the 23 numbers, and this is kind of a roll-up, on the residential replacement side, on average, sales were down probably low double digit. So if your business is off 12 or 13%, there's a good chance you're probably not going to want to spend a lot of money in Las Vegas. That's probably a big factor. And another thing to look at real quickly is, these publicly traded companies give us somewhat of a barometer on what's going on right now. It's interesting to look at the floor and decor numbers, just to run through those. Their same-store sales were down 7.1% in 23. But as you get into the fourth quarter and then into January, it's even worse. Down 9.4% in Q4, down 13% in the first 2 months of 2024. And Lowe's and Home Depot have reported, and Lowe's number is down 7.4% in January, and Home Depot sales were down 8.5% in January as far as same-store sales. So that's an indication that things are still pretty soft, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll speak to that a little bit, some of these publicly held numbers. But we were on the phone, I think, last February, and I was pretty conservative in my look for what was going to happen in 23. I think I was pretty close. I said that the average in terms of the flooring industry would be about 10 on the residential side, and the public companies would do better than that. And I think I was more conservative than most. So when I think about 2024, I don't use the term cautiously optimistic. I use the term cautious. I think 2025 things will be fine, but the question is, are we at a cyclical low? When I look at some of the numbers you just cited, if you take the Interface, Lowe's, Home Depot, Mohawk, they're down, call it 3 to 4%, closer to 4%. Right? And that's in the fourth quarter. And that is comparing to a weak comp in the fourth quarter of 23. The first quarter of 24 is going to be bad. January, the weather, all those things. Transactions are down. Price is down. There's a lot of promoting going down. Big ticket items are down. DIY is down. The Lira shows minus 6% in 2024. NHB is talking about multifamily being down. Commercial, the ABI index is 46%-ish. So, yeah, I think when you look at the guidance, the publicly held companies are kind of flat to down. It's all about the second half. And I think we're all kind of waiting to see what happens on interest rates. But if you think about it, interest rates are not going to come down as fast or as early as anybody thinks, in my opinion. And then there's a lag effect.
Right.
So just because interest rates go down doesn't mean that someone throws a switch.
The question is are we at the bottom right now?
Correct. And if you look at the earnings transcripts over the last few quarters, and I look at Mohawks in particular because I think Jeff's got a pretty good feel for these things and he's cautious. I think the earnings transcripts all said, well, we think we're near the bottom. And that's probably been said in the last 2 to 3 quarters. If we are at the bottom, then it's going to be a while before we come up off the bottom. But I think the good news is that when we come off the bottom, the fundamentals are there. We are going to see the need for new homes. We're going to start seeing mortgage rates come to a magical number that gets people unlocked from their homes, and existing home sales go up. And new homes as well will follow. So is that 5.5%? Is it 6%? We have a ways to go. The builders are buying them down, obviously, and it's creating some traffic. But when mortgage rates do come down to whatever that magic number is, I think we'll start to see a resurgence, and commercial will follow that.
All right, so try to move into some optimism for a minute. Some things, some shifts we're seeing. If you look at Floor & Decor, they're shifting some of their sourcing from where they're buying product. In 2018, 50% of their products came from China. And in 2023, they admitted they dropped that down to half. So 25% of their product comes from China, and most of that's LVT. Another trend we're seeing is forever and ever they've been talking about LVT, and now we're seeing that laminate is picking up a little bit, which is a surprise, or at least a multi-layered flooring with melamine top is kind of where some excitement is. Then you've got several companies that picked up in the hardwood business. You've got Target Home entering that space, Southwind entering that space, Cali talking about that's one of their most interesting categories. And then MSI entered it last year, and they were adding to that and saying how strong their launch had been. So hardwood certainly is leveling out, or maybe even picking up some, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think hardwood on the low end, we all know, is a whole other matter, but hardwood in the middle and the high end is doing okay. And the hardwood look, and you and I have talked about this before, the hardwood look is the favorite look in a home for home buyers. Right. So and the hardwood itself is the aspirational product. So you see companies diversifying into this. And when you're in a slow growth market, and LVT has been 20-25% of the market, let's say, and it's slowing down and price is a problem, you're going to diversify. So I think we're seeing diversification. It's natural, particularly when there's no growth and we're in a soft market. Your comment about LVT to laminate, I think that's right. The industry has seen failures when SPC has been used improperly, installed SPC. So contractors, installers, they're going to favor laminate, which they know much better. But when you think about it, LVT is 20-25% of the product demand in the U.S., and laminate is 5-ish. Laminate can grow in terms of its percentage growth rate a lot from a very small base compared to LVT. And LVT is a bit of a mess right now because of the pricing, and never mind, fundamental demand. But yeah, I think the low end of SPC, it's become too easy to do. It can be made cheaply. I think that's going to shift some of the demand towards a laminate and a higher end SPC. You mentioned Interface a minute ago. Just another mention on that. I actually had a face-to-face with Laurel Hurd recently, and while their sales are off, I think 2.8%, their profitability is up. So it's good to see that some of these companies are, tightening the pencil and rearranging the way they go to market. Well, on your comment on Interface, the manufacturers are seeing lower input costs. So that's really helping their profitability. And interesting with Interface, you saw an increase in their carpet top price. So I thought that pretty interesting as well. I'm getting ready to jump on a plane to be with the Fuse people. Yeah, I think they're still pretty upbeat. They've added a lot of new members, and looking forward to being with that group this weekend. Oh, that's great. You doing any traveling time soon? Well, not so much in March, but April we take off. We've got the NWFA coming up. We've got coverings coming up. We've got a trip to Europe to see some clients coming up. April, here we go on the road. Sounds good. Okay, Bruce, good to talk to you again. Been talking to Bruce Zwicker, an industry consultant, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorValley.net.